Hey guys, it's Kat and I am back today with a foundation review. I've actually been wanting to do this one for a couple of months now. So this is the Australis Fresh and Flawless Full Coverage Foundation infused with vitamin C SPF 15. So this came out end of last year. I got it in, I think, early December, I want to say. I did mention it in my December favorites because it was one that was just so easy. I found it so easy to apply and it wore really nicely, especially it's summer at the moment in Australia. I do have oily combination skin, so my T-zone gets really, really oily. And I just noticed that for a sort of lightweight feeling foundation, this one lasted really nicely and gave a really nice finish, and I was really impressed with it. So it's been on my list of things to do a wear test on for a couple of months now. I do want to say that this is the first time I've used it in about a month because in January I started my Project Pan and I've just been trying to focus on those products. So this is sort of, I'm being reunited with it. I've tried it many times, but I haven't tried it for a while. So I do need a bit of a refresher with this. So yeah, that's what we're doing today. I currently have it on. As you can see, I will cut to the footage shortly of me applying it. I do apply it with a sponge and a brush just to see what I think about it. But I will talk about the foundation first and then let's get on to the wear test. So if you're not familiar with Australis, it is an Australian drugstore brand. The Fresh and Flawless line has been around for the longest time. And I think I've been using their Fresh and Flawless pressed powders for the better part of a decade. I always go to Priceline and buy them when they're like 40% off. It's a really good powder that is sort of a high coverage powder that is supposed to sort of be like a dupe for the MAC mineralized skin finish naturals, if that makes sense. Not the highlighter ones, but the sort of baked powders. It gives you a sort of similar effect, but a lot cheaper. So it's a powder I've been using forever. So I was really curious to see what this foundation was going to be like. So the claims of this foundation, they do have a few, but they're mainly just on the back of the bottle. So I did look on the website, but they don't really flesh out more. So the back of the bottle says it's a full coverage and ultra lightweight foundation with skin loving vitamins C and E and SPF 15 to moisturize, smooth and protect. Say see ya to pores and fine lines and hello to a soft airbrushed finish that'll party with you, not against you. So they're saying also that this is made in Thailand. It's not tested on animals. It is vegan and shake well before use. So Australis is a vegan cruelty-free brand, which is great. The price point of this in Australia is 95 Australian dollars. But again, Australis is stocked in a Priceline, so you can often get it 40, sometimes 50% off. And I'm going to say that this is a product that I will stock up on, probably different shades, when I see the next sale. So that's what I do with their powders. It's probably what I'm going to do with their foundation because I really do like this foundation. They have 30 shades, which is fantastic in the Australian drugstore market. There's not many brands that have 30 shades of foundation. So at this price point, and again, you know, 20 Australian dollars sounds like a lot, but if you compare it to something like Revlon, their foundations are in the high 30s in Australia. So this is a lot cheaper. And of course, you can always find it somewhere on sale. The shade that I currently have is light beige. And yeah, these are 30 ml bottles. They're very small, but they're 30 mils. All right, so those are the claims. So like I said, this is a little compact, little sort of rectangular bottle. It's very small and very compact, easy to store, easy to take traveling. It isn't like a bottle that you can squeeze. So it's a plastic bottle. It's not a squeezy bottle, but there is some flexibility to it. And what's really great as well is it's got a sort of pouring spout because this is so runny. You can really control how much product you pour out. You can take the smallest amount or more if you wanted to. So I think they've done a really good job with the packaging design. It's very simple, very basic, but very, very functional. All right, before I move on, I do want to tell you a little bit more about my skin. I did say it's oily combination, so I do get oil breakthrough in my T-zone. I do get a bit of like creasing because I'm 33 years old. And also it is a hot day today. So it is quite muggy, it's quite humid. and it's 30 degrees Celsius. So I am going to actually go outside and do a bunch of stuff today. I'm not just going to be in an air-conditioned office. So this wear test will put its sort of oil controllability to the test. It doesn't actually say it's oil controlling, but that's what I like to test anyway. So let's cut to me applying this foundation earlier today, and then I'll check in throughout the day, see how it wears. All right, so it is just before 8:30 a.m. So I'm going to be putting this foundation on my face. I have just put skincare on, so the Glow is moisturizer and sunscreen. I'm not putting any primer on because I like to see how foundations wear without primer. The light is a little bit blue looking because it's the morning light. That's what tends to happen. But the shade that I'm wearing today is light beige. So let's put it on. Now, to be honest, I haven't used this in about a month or so. I really used this quite a lot in December and early January, but then I focused a bit more on my Project Pan stuff. I don't remember if it's best applied with a sponge or a brush. I sort of want to try both because it is very, very liquidy, and I feel like with a sponge, it's just going to sink into a sponge. So this is my normal application method, but I feel like it's not the best one for this. So I'm going to probably do half face with sponge, half face with brush. I do really like that this has a little pourer mechanism, so you can just pour out the smallest amount, and I'm going to put it directly onto my damp beauty blender. I'm just using the smallest amount right now. So you can see it's very, very runny, and the way that I put on the sponge, it's not applying to large areas because I put it on like the smallest area, but I don't think, like, this is applying fine. I just don't really like this application for this type of foundation. But already, even putting that on stupidly, that applies that really smoothly. So I didn't really get it up to here. I didn't put enough product there, but it did apply really evenly. There's no like patchiness. It's really thin, but it does cover, like I put a really tiny amount. It applied really thinly because it's quite watery, but you can see that that redness that I get in my cheeks is sort of gone. So it evens your skin tone really nicely. I want to try it with a brush. So I've just put some on the back of my hand. You can see how runny it is. My only reservation with how runny this is, like, it's super easy to apply, which is nice. Super easy to pick up with a brush. There's a little bit left there. But my only reservation, see how nice that sort of sweeps on, is that I feel like even though this is 30 ml bottle, it sort of is going to be used up pretty quickly because, I don't know, like, you don't have to use too much product, which is good. But I think what I'm just trying to say with liquidy foundations is my reservation is that you can use them up really, really quickly. And if you find something that you love, you sort of want it to last more than a month. I don't know, it's tiny and I feel like I'll use it up really quickly. Luckily, it's super cheap though. So this applied super nicely with a brush and a sponge. So it's just about your preferred method. It is a very, very thin layer, but I feel like this is enough makeup for me just on a daily basis. Because this does say it's a full coverage, ultra lightweight foundation, I do want to go back in and sort of put more around this sort of area. Again, this is a medium coverage that I'm super happy with, but I do want to see if this builds on itself a little bit more. All right, I forgot to show you, but I took about this much. I've already put my brush in it, and I'm just going to build up the areas around my nose and forehead and chin. All right, it does build on itself, but I almost feel like building would be better with a sponge because you sort of see brush speckly marks when you try to build it. I think with a sponge, you'll get a smoother effect. So it's definitely built up the coverage a little bit more, but I don't think it's turned it to full coverage at all. Full coverage, in my opinion, blanks out everything. You wouldn't be able to see my mole there that is in that sort of zone where I put a second layer. You wouldn't be able to see anything underneath because full coverage is full coverage. High coverage is where most things are covered. In my opinion, this is getting to sort of full coverage. And then medium coverage is where you get a lot of evening out, but you can still see parts of your skin underneath. So whether it is a little bit of discoloring or whatever it might be, that's sort of medium coverage for me. So this is not at all full coverage. I find brands always claim full coverage and it's always not the case. I also don't think you can build to full coverage because this is so liquidy that I feel like it doesn't build on itself as well as other foundations, but I really love the effect of it. It's very, very light. It still feels quite wet, but it was really easy to apply with a brush and a sponge, which I'm really happy about. I think, yeah, for a quick sort of thin layer just for every day, a brush is probably easier because it doesn't soak up as much product. But to build on it, I think a sponge works a bit better to build up the areas. So that's what I've sort of noticed. So I'm going to zoom in, and hopefully in this lighting we can see how it looks. Then I'll go away and do my makeup and show you sort of how it wears throughout the day. All right, let's get up close and personal. You can see that the skin is quite shiny. It hasn't minimized the effect of pores, but you can see that it really has sort of evened out skin tone. And it looks quite glowy because I haven't said it, but there is a nice amount of coverage. Like there's a little breakout there that hasn't been completely covered, but it looks good. Skin looks good. All right, hopefully you can see again, just around here, there's a lot of redness that's been covered. Skin looks really good. One thing I also want to say is if you do want to go in and sort of just move things around, there is some moving time. So usually these sort of liquidy foundations dry really quickly. This one doesn't. Like you can still sort of maneuver it around, which is nice. So you've got a bit of time to move it, but you can see it just looks really nice, looks really healthy. All right, I'm back with a little bit more makeup, as you can see. So I've got all my makeup on. I have not put highlighter because I like to see if how my oils break through. So you can see the bronzer, everything worked well over the top. I was trying a concealer that I'm sort of testing that I've used only a few times. It's by Nabla, and I did have to pack it on quite a bit because I think the powder I was using over the top, which is my Project Pan powder, this one wasn't sort of sitting on top of the concealer. So this is looking a lot more bold than it was before, but makeup is sitting really nicely. It's not looking gross. It works well. So I did also want to say that the foundation, I noticed it was still shiny and sort of wet looking until I set it. So if you do not like a matte finish, it doesn't go to a matte finish, which is good. So that's the makeup afterwards. Before I do move on to like checking in later on, I do want to mention that on my eyes, I'm wearing the Nabla Dreamy 2 palette, and on my lips, I'm wearing a Nabla Backbeat lipstick. This is actually a really gorgeous shade. So it's like a cool toned greyish sort of color. I really like it. So I know people are going to ask, but anyway, that's what I'm wearing. But I did want to mention whether or not I think this so far meets the claims. So I did discuss when I applied it that I don't think it's full coverage. I think it's a sort of medium to buildable coverage, so you can get it to more of a higher coverage, but not full coverage. I also just wanted to mention really quickly that this claims to be like ultra lightweight foundation. I do think that if you apply a small amount with a brush, which when I did demonstrate that, you can get a nice sort of just evening of your skin tone, and you can get a nice sort of light amount of product on your face. So if you just patted that a little bit, it would feel a lot more lightweight than it does currently on me now. So I have tried it that way. I really do like it. I do think it is quite lightweight feeling. But if you do want to build it up to more of that higher full coverage that they're claiming you can, I do think that you do feel like you're wearing makeup. So right now, because I did put concealer under my eyes and I did powder it down, I feel like I'm wearing makeup, but I also like that this has the versatility of you can sheer it out and use it just as a sort of everyday easy foundation, or you can build it up and make it more like full-on glam, which is what I generally wear when I'm filming. So this does have the versatility of that, which I really do like. One thing I do want to test really quickly is sort of like a flash test, because this does have SPF. So I want to see if it has a lot of flashback. Yeah, okay, so I did a photo test just then. So the photo with no flash definitely looks a lot better, and then with flash there is flashback. So I will put those photos on the screen so you can see. So this would be more of your everyday foundation, not your going out flash photography foundation. But again, I don't think that's It's a limitation, but I would prefer my daily foundation to have some SPF in there. So I would, yes, consider this to be more of your everyday foundation, not your special occasion foundation, even though you can build it up to look special occasion. One other thing that it claims is that you can say see ya to pores and fine lines and hello to a soft airbrushed finish. Now, I don't know if I necessarily believe that. Probably, as you saw when I was applying it, you can still see your pores. I think if you then go in with a powder, I'm sure if you went in with the Fresh and Flawless powder that goes in this range, I think you could definitely get a more perfected sort of airbrushed look. I do think my skin looks really good and the pores aren't emphasized. I just don't know if this foundation minimizes pores and fine lines, if you know what I mean. So I feel like it's pretty standard, but it's not, it doesn't emphasize them, which is good. All right, so it is 11:46 and it is 3 hours since I applied this. It is looking good. It's looking solid. It's not feeling like it's breaking down. The only thing I think I want to mention is that my upper lip is sweaty. So I feel like today it's going to be a rare occasion where this breaks down more than around my nose, which is the common area that breaks down first. Around my nose, there's no oiliness, which is good. Everything looks like it's set well. Everything is staying put, but I am just about to go out to do some grocery shopping and to catch up with a friend for a quick coffee. So like I said, it's a hot day today, so I feel like I'm going to melt. Also, I've done my nails, yay. Also, I'm struggling with humidity these days. I think hormones are just, I feel like I'm getting hot flushes. So I feel like, yeah, if this lasts today, it's going to be a good test for the foundation because I will be out and about and I will be very hot while doing it. All right, we're back for a check-in. It is just past 2:30, so it's been 6 hours already. Jesus Christ. So anyway, makeup is looking pretty good. I was out and about for a couple of hours and it didn't melt off as much as I was expecting. I did notice a bit of an issue, but I'm actually going to put it down to the concealer. And look, it was a bad idea. Like, I've been trying this concealer this week. I haven't tried it with this foundation, so sometimes they just don't really mix very well. But the issue that I'm having is around my nose and on my nose, where I did put a little bit of concealer down here and then I sort of blended it. And because it's a fairly high coverage concealer, it ended up covering a larger area than I was expecting. So what I tend to do with concealer is I put a little bit under my eyes, I put a little bit here around my nostrils, and I put a little bit on my chin. And I feel like those are the areas that are starting to sort of not break down, but almost clump up a little bit. So I'm actually thinking it's the combination of this concealer with the foundation and not so much the foundation on its own, which is really frustrating because you think like, you know, I'm reviewing the foundation and you know, theoretically to do a pure review of foundation, you would just wear foundation, but I also need to do other stuff with my day. And I also like to test the foundation how I would normally wear it, which is with a little bit of concealer. So, you know, makes it hard. But the issue that I'm having, and I think I will zoom in a second, show you, is that I'm finding that I think the concealer is looking a little bit cakey. And what happened under here, especially since I was getting quite sweaty on my upper lip, was that it was sort of chunking up a bit. So while I was out, I looked at it and I'm like, ugh, and I sort of just patted it in, which did work, and it sort of patted into the nose, but it sort of lifted in weird bits. So I might actually go, I don't need to touch up my foundation with powder because it is staying very set, which is fantastic. I don't think the foundation is actually having a problem at all. Again, I think it's just the concealer. So what I might do is get my sponge, and after I zoom in, I might touch up the nose with a little bit more foundation because I feel like the foundation holds better than the concealer. And then we can check back in later on to see how it looks. But yeah, I think the issues that I'm having is actually concealer issues, which is frustrating. All right, we're up close and personal. Hopefully you can see that breaking down or that chunkiness of the concealer on my nose. See how it looks patchy, but it's not looking patchy anywhere else. Everywhere else is looking smooth and really, really good. It just happens to be the areas that I think the concealer just didn't really stick to the skin very well. So I'm going back in with a little tiny dot of that foundation on that same sponge that I used today, and I'm going to see if I can just touch it up. So let's just... This is a bit of a test to see how well this foundation sort of layers on top of concealers and powders and oils that have sort of come through. I sort of feel like it is now just, as it sort of sets and you tap it, it's sort of lifting the foundation a little bit. So I feel like less is more with this. And building it up too much can lead to the fact that it sort of lifts on itself. All right, this is not really working. I'm gonna wipe as much excess off as possible because it's starting to chunk up and not look good. All right, at least I've learned that this foundation really doesn't like to build or touch itself up if it has been set. So I've just taken that off. I'm putting a tiny bit back on, a thin layer, so we can start this sort of wear test around the nose again. So hopefully you can see a nice thin layer looks a lot better than it did before. I don't know if that's a sign that this foundation is just a lot better in a thinner layer, but you know, that was a bit of a mess. Again, I don't really know who's to blame for that, whether it is the concealer or the foundation or a combination of both, or how it works with the powder. I'm not too sure. I just know that on its own, it's looking a lot better. And what I will do is I'll just go off and powder that really lightly so it sets, and we'll keep an eye on it throughout the rest of the day. What this does sort of suggest though is that if you're the kind of person, and I am this kind of person, so you know, not everyone is, but like if you're finishing work at the end of the day and you find that you have some areas that are broken down or that don't look perfect, especially if you've got oily skin, I do like to go in with a concealer or the foundation just to sort of like rebuild that area and patch that area a little bit so you can continue on if you've got plans in the evening and you look a lot more fresh. I don't feel like this foundation built well on itself, so I feel like the thinner layer the better, and you sort of just have to leave it alone, because if you mess with it too much, it can start lifting itself. So again, that might be the injection of the concealer making things go a bit funny, but the rest of the face that has not got concealer and has not been touched looks really perfect. It's just that this area that was getting disturbed by my sweat and grossness, yeah, it was acting a bit funny. All right, can you believe it that it is over 9 hours of wear and this makeup looks pretty much the same as it did almost when I first put it on. I think the face is not smearing, it's not getting oily, and it's a hot day, like I said, nothing. The only thing is I think there's a little bit of wear around the nose. Always happens with foundation with me, like, you know, you rub my nose or whatever it is. But I do also, once again, feel like that's the concealer breaking down, because the nose area, since touching it up, is perfect, and around my nose is always where I first break through oil. I don't have much shine on my chin, no powder touch-ups. I did set my nose with a bit of powder before, but no powder touch-ups anywhere. This is crazy. I think the only thing that I wanted to mention, and you probably can't see it on camera too much, but I feel like my face is a little bit more yellow toned than my body. But again, I think that's just color match. I don't think it's oxidizing or changing color as sort of the day goes on. I think it's just a color match thing. So it is what it is, but I think this looks great. I'm going to zoom in, and then what I'll probably do is the sun's starting to go down, so I'll have to move to artificial lights where I can conclude this in about 3 hours time, which is a 12-hour wear. What I might actually do tomorrow as well, because I'm a little bit like, feel like this test, because of the concealer, so it sort of went a bit pear-shaped, I might actually check back in tomorrow at a similar time. So I might wear this foundation again in a sort of less built up, heavy sort of way, because this is like my filming makeup. Tomorrow I'll wear less makeup. I will be out all day, but I might come back at the 8 or 9 hour mark tomorrow and just show you how the foundation's wearing in a less sort of cakey way, if that makes sense, without the issue of the concealer. I'll use a concealer that I'm much more used to, or not conceal around my nose. So yeah, that's what I might do, because I think this went a little bit obscure, but hopefully you can tell it's actually looking pretty good. But I'll zoom in. So again, there is no oil breakthrough. The pores are looking fine. The skin's looking good. Bronze is still there, blush is still there. You don't see a lot of like oiliness coming through at all. Around the nose, once again, there's a little breakdown here, which might be the concealer. Usually this area is super oily. I'm wearing the same lip as before, just with a lip gloss over the top. Super, super oily, but this is not very oily, especially for a day like today. Makeup is looking really fresh at the 9-hour mark. Like this is, I'm liking it. All right, so it's been over 12 hours. I'm not sure if you can see that. It's 8:42 p.m. And I think this foundation is looking pretty damn good. I just really want to take it off, and I've got a little fleck of something there. Forehead where my skin is normal is like perfect. I'm starting to get some shine through the T-zone. You can see it on the chin. You can see it sort of on the nose. I don't think my nose has broken down on the surface, on the top part of my nose. It hasn't broken down since touching it up. Around the sides, there is definitely like separation happening. Again, I don't know if that's the concealer, so I'm going to do a quick check-in tomorrow with a lighter coverage and not that concealer and see how it's going. But everything's looking kind of good. It's looking a bit glowy. I do have studio lights on me and it always makes things look a lot more glowy. But I think this is a really nice looking foundation. I do have to admit this foundation is looking pretty heavy. So whether it's me trying to build up the coverage or if it's just the concealer that I used, how I applied it, it is feeling quite heavy. So I really feel like I want to take it off. It's not smearing, like it's still touch dry, which is amazing. Because what I really love from a foundation is if it doesn't like just melt off my face by the end of the day. So I'm really happy with this. The last time I had a foundation that I think wore in a similar way, it was a Smashbox full coverage one that I tried last year. That one is a lot of coverage, whereas I prefer this for a daily basis thing. So like I said, I built it up a lot today. I do want to test it tomorrow with less coverage. But I think this is a really, really great sort of medium to high coverage foundation, super lightweight. I like that it's got SPF. It means that it has flashback, but if you know, just don't use it when you're going to be under flash photography. But on my oily combination skin on a hot day that's quite humid, this is wearing really well. This glow can easily be touched up with a bit of powder. This patchiness could easily be touched up with a little bit of concealer. So if I wanted to extend this wear a lot further, I'm sure that I can do it with a quick touch up, but I want to take it off. But yeah, I think it looks super healthy. I think the glow that's coming through, like it's definitely controlling my oils, which it doesn't actually claim to do, but it's definitely controlling my oils to a nice amount. And the oils that are coming through are actually just giving my skin a glow. So I really dig this. I give it a very big thumbs up. For a drugstore foundation in Australia, this is a really good one to check out. As soon as I see this on sale, I'll probably pick up another one in a lighter shade so I can mix it throughout the year and have a shade for winter, because I'm still not sure if you can see it on camera, but it is a little bit too yellow for my body. But yeah, dig it. Very much like this foundation, which is great to see. Even though I'm leaving it there for tonight, I will check back really quickly tomorrow to let you know how it looks after probably about 8 or 9 hours wear with a like lighter application. All right, so I'm back the next day. I was going to leave this for a bit longer, but there is a storm that's going to come, so we're going to lose the natural lighting, so I thought I'd check in. This is about the 6-hour mark. I am wearing a bit of makeup. I said I was going to wear a lot more natural makeup, and the base is a lot thinner, so I haven't built it up. I only put a little bit of concealer just in here. I've got no other concealer around my nose or anywhere else, so this is a lighter layer of foundation. The eye look, because I'm playing with a new palette, went a little bit more bold than I was expecting to. But yes, the base is a lot more pared down, but you know, it is what it is. So this is about 6 hours wear, and today has been a lot hotter than yesterday. It's been a lot muggier, and I've been out and about in the heat for a lot longer. So this has actually worn pretty damn well. There is no wear around the nose, unlike yesterday. I will zoom in a bit. There's a bit of wear around my eyes where I had sunglasses on. So I do have a lot of glow going on because I have applied highlighter. I applied a little bit on my nose. I applied a bunch here. So it's not looking as matte as it was yesterday. But one thing that's interesting is that around the nose, it hasn't broken down and doesn't look as patchy as it did yesterday. There is a little bit of breaking down around the nose, but it looks like it's wearing pretty well. And it looks like it's fading down fairly like naturally. It doesn't look as sort of chunky as yesterday did, so I do blame the concealer for that. So hopefully you can see zoomed in that there's not too much oil breakthrough, there's not too much breakdown of the foundation. Like I said, that's a little bit bare. There's a little bit of oil breaking through there, but everything else is looking pretty good. Like around there is looking remarkably good for this sort of weather and this wear time. Bit of oil on the chin, but it's not breaking down. It's just sort of a bit of glow coming through. So I'm really happy with this foundation. I think it's really nice. So I actually think this foundation probably works its best when it is a little bit more pared down, because it just sort of feels better. It sort of wears really well. And yeah, sometimes there's going to be concealers that don't mix super well with it and will affect how it looks. But I do blame the concealer in this instance because this is wearing, you know, well. And past times where I've worn this, I've been really impressed with the wear time as well. And yeah, how it wears around my nose is a huge indication of how well it works on oily skin, because that's where I get oily the quickest and that's where things break down the fastest. So yeah, like this foundation. Well done, Australis. All right, so that's gonna be it for today's video. Let me know if you've tried this, what you think about it, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.